Muy buenas tardes. A nombre de la Secretaría de Cultura del Estado de Chihuahua, la Subsecretaría de Cultura Zona Norte y la Feria del Libro de la Frontera 2021, Volver a lo Esencial, les damos la bienvenida al Conversatorio Chicano Cómics. Presento también a Edgar Aguilar, quien estará moderando este interesante conversatorio. Bienvenido, Edgar. Adelante.
Muchas gracias, Jess. Muchas gracias. Bueno, pues es un honor y sobre todo es un gran placer estar aquí. Este es mi segundo año que participo en la Feria del Libro de la Frontera. Y bueno, a nombre de la Secretaría de Cultura del Estado de Chihuahua, la Subsecretaría de Cultura Zona Norte y la Feria del Libro de la Frontera 2021, Volver a lo Esencial, les damos la bienvenida al conversatorio. Permítanme, perdón. Al conversatorio Chicano Cómics. Mi nombre es Edgar Aguilar. Acompañaré a los invitados el día de hoy a lo largo de este conversatorio que están con nosotros, Richard Domínguez, Héctor Rodríguez y Ramos. Voy a hablar un poquito del trabajo, una breve semblanza de los participantes, sobre los participantes. De Richard Domínguez is an American comic book artist and freelance storyboard illustrator. Best known for creating the popular series El Gato Negro, Domínguez publishes his comics through his imprint and art studio, Azteca Productions. Domínguez also is well known for influencing other artists and creators in the pursuit of their own selfish publishing ventures. Héctor Rodríguez, creator of El Peso Hero and co-founder of Texas Latino Comic Con. El Peso Hero is a comic book heavily influenced by the modern day challenges people from both sides of the US-Mexico border face. The main story is centered on El Peso Hero, a rogue hero who is standing up against the border's corrupt officials and human traffickers. El Peso Hero has been one of the most internationally talked about Latino superhero in decades. With modern social issues such as immigration, human trafficking, and institutional corruption, El Peso Hero have garnered attention and praise from the Latino community and being featured on American Way magazine, Univision, CNN, Telemundo, NPR, CBS, NBC, and countless other media sites worldwide. Ramos, the Zambi Bukowski, is a poet, creator of El Valiente, El Paso, Texas' first Latino superhero. He's written for Heavy Metal magazine and publishes several comics, including his graphic novel Hell's Pass, which was featured in Europe at Angulema International Comic Festival. An aficionado in the art of storytelling, he is currently writing the I'm sorry, I cannot really pronounce this one. Cryptinals. Ray, can you help me? Okay, sorry about that one.
You're close enough. You're good.
Sorry about that. For 656 Comics, featuring La Llorona as a hero for the first time anywhere. So from that, I'll just like to start going on. And as you know, this is a conversatorio. If you guys want to just start shooting or you stand something on your mind, or otherwise I'll have a bunch of, as I was saying, on my own questions and my own comments.
No problem, man. Nothing much. How you guys doing? Oh man, it's difficult to follow these acts. I'm telling you right now, because these are guys that I've looked up to a very long time. Richard, especially, Hector. In recent years, these guys have been working it, man, to really push the whole Latino, Hispanic, Chicano experience out there. For people who are not aware of, that comics can be made on the border. And for me, it all started, meeting Richard back in, it was in the early 2000s at San Diego Comic Con. And that's when I first experienced El Gato Negro, man. And Richard, take it from there, man, because tell us about what you've done and where you come from, man.
Well, I came from, growing up in the late 60s, I was influenced by my uncle, who was a comic collector back in the 60s. And he was, at that time, he was a teenager. And when he would go out with his friends, I would sneak into his room at my grandmother's house, and would go found his stash of comic books in his room, and spread it all over his bed. There was DC, Marvel, Charlton, even some Mexican comics of Calimán and Memín Penguin. Everybody remembers that, you know. So, and I used to spread them all out until he comes out there and busts me, and he goes, "Hey, get out of my room!" And and my grandmother says, you know, "Hey, you know, don't you treat him that way. Give him one, at least give him one comic book." So he gave me one without a cover, and I believe it was our Army at War. None of the superhero ones, but that was just the beginning. That was just the beginning. I was heavily influenced by Kirby and Ditko, Bob Kane, Will Eisner, and others, you know. So and I wanted to work for both DC and Marvel growing up, learning how to draw, and it was a God given talent that I did, you know, having there. And then I would show my portfolios to the professionals, and they would just beat me up there with critics, you know, and which encouraged me more to go further. And when the doors closed on me on both DC and Marvel, I got rejection letters galore. It just said, "Hey, why not I just do my own?" So, and when I was going to a comic book store, I found one comic book of Judge Margarito Garza, Relámpago. I found it in a 25-cent bin, and I got in touch with him because his contact number was still in the book, and he heavily influenced me and encouraged me to go independent. And I became good friends with him, and when I created El Gato Negro, I showed it to him. He knew I was serious, and he wanted to collaborate with me. And he said, "Hey, why don't I bring a Relámpago back, and I'll do the story, and you do the art, and we can take it from there after I retire." When he retired, not even a month later, he suffered a heart attack and passed away. And but that encouraged me just to go on and come up with El Gato Negro, and the rest was history there.
I remember some of that story that you had told us before, man. And it always like I always relate to it as well because of my journey as far as comics. But Héctor, what about you, man?
No, pues para comenzar, muchas gracias por tenernos y un placer. Saludos a todos desde Dallas, Texas. Yo sé que mi corazón está en la frontera con mi familia en Coahuila, en Piedras Negras, en Monclova, Saltillo, ¿verdad? Y pues yo comencé en la frontera de chiquito, viendo las películas pues de Capolina, Cantinflas, la lucha libre siendo algo muy importante para mí, pues viendo Mil Máscaras, ¿verdad? El Santo, Blue Demon, ya sabes, y además la AAA cuando comenzó en los 90s, y en eso totalmente el cine de oro mexicano ha sido algo muy importante para mí también creciendo. Y yo siempre en la frontera, pues no teníamos acceso a muchas de las historietas americanas, pero sí en la frontera, pues en México, en Piedras Negras, sí tenías pues los historietas de diferentes, ¿verdad? De Calimán y del Santo, esas. Y yo siempre quería ser mi propio héroe, ¿no? Un héroe que viajaba en los ambos lados y que tenga el orgullo mexicano norteño, especialmente un héroe norteño que nunca se había visto, ¿verdad? Con sus botas y como que le gusta la banda, ya sabes, algo muy especial sobre esa cultura. Y eso comenzó cerca de los 2003, es cuando mi abuelito me influenció mucho de la historia del peso Hero.
I think he
Se
froze.
congeló. Yeah.
Yes. He'll be back right now.
Yeah, right. In that same dynamic, that like, how did you start? In that same dynamic, but origins and tu origen, cómo empiezas a conectar. Yo, dibujante, como compartió Héctor y el compañero, y Richard.
It was pretty much the same thing. Era la misma cosa. De niño, pues no tenía muchos amigos, no tenía con quién jugar. Comics I would find by accident, like in the ditch, like just thrown away. And I started gathering these comics, you know, and I would read them. It was Spider-Man, of course. I started off with Spider-Man. The first comic that I ever bought was X-Men. I bought Uncanny X-Men. It was 242, and it was the Inferno crossover. And the first page that you open up, it's Wolverine kissing Jean Grey, and I was like, "What's this? What's going on here?" Oh, I had known about Spider-Man, but I didn't know about the X-Men. So I started like delving deeper and deeper, and I got into the whole comic book thing. But I was always writing poetry from a very young age, and I got into indie comics through Faust. The first comic I ever got that was an indie comic was Faust. It was Tim Vigil's Faust. I found it at the swap for like 25 cents. And it just completely destroyed my mind and changed my attitude as far as comics were concerned and what could be done. So I knew I wanted to do something indie. I knew I wanted to do something eventually once I was older that had to do with comics, but I couldn't draw. So I would just write, you know, stories, poetry. I had been writing since I was in the 3rd grade. And the two, you know, I never really got a chance to put them together until I read Neil Gaiman's Sandman. Once I read Sandman, I understood that comics were not just, you know, capes and tights and that's it. You know, they could be more. It could be vastly more. It could be an art form. Not to say that capes and tights are not an art form, especially when it comes to like Ditko and Kirby and stuff like that, because that's pure art on another level. But I realized that I wanted to meld the two. I wanted to meld poetry and comics, and I started working on my own book since that time, since like very, very, you know, late in high school. And I found like-minded people, and we connected, and we started organizing ourselves into a group, and we started doing comics out of El Paso. And it was the first time that comics were done in El Paso on that type of scale during that time. It was like the 90s, you know, the mid-90s. And people were like, well, why are you doing comics? You know, and I'm like, that's when Image started. And I'm like, Image is doing it. Why can't we do it? You know? And that's where the whole thing, the whole love affair with producing indie comics came from. And El Valiente, well, El Valiente came later on when I realized that the representation of El Paso was very, I don't know, it just seemed very narrow. Like the view of it was very narrow-minded. Because every time El Paso was mentioned, there was always like, you know, saguaro cactuses and saloon doors and all this other stuff in buildings. And I was like, that's not even, people don't ride around horses around here, you know? So I wanted to try and represent El Paso in a different light, in a more positive and not less stereotypical light. But at the same time, you know, like Hector was stating earlier, La Lucha was a big influence. I would watch it on Canal 5. Early Ditko and you know, Kirby were a big influence as well, because, you know, they were doing comics that were not the regular run-of-the-mill books. They were doing books that were like out of the box. So that's when I figured, like, hey, maybe I can combine all of this that I know and make a superhero for El Paso. And that representation came as El Valiente. That's when I started getting into more as far as doing my own books than trying to subscribe or rather pitch to the major companies. And I'm sorry, Hector, you got interrupted while you were talking, man.
No, you're good. Yeah, we just have kind of la conexión, disculpen. No, pero sí, tienes buena razón, Ray. You have a good. It's that estamos en los independientes. We're in the indie scene, ¿verdad? Yes, that's where development and good ideas, you know, that's the base, es el base, ¿verdad? Y todos estamos juntos, unidos en estas ligas, ¿verdad? En los indies, en los independientes.
No, it's very true, man. It just seems that we're not restrained by just corporate or whatever you want to call it. You know, you got to follow a certain pattern and all this other stuff. Especially nowadays, man, it seems like everything is very focused on inclusivity and all this other stuff. Well, there's nothing wrong with that, but sometimes it appears that types of books that we liked growing up are frowned upon. That you know, you can't replicate that type of energy or that type of art that was going on during the time we were coming up and loving these comics now, because they're looked upon as, oh, well, you're being not inclusive, you're being kind of elitist and stuff like that. But that's the type of stuff that we liked, and that's the type of stuff that comics, I think, have always been. You know, they're flights of fantasy, they're suspension of reality. It's something that you want to escape into. It's escapism, to become someone else and be someone else. And that's something that I always, like, I admired, you know, especially Richard. I admired El Gato Negro because he wore a mask. And when I was a kid growing up, any character that wore a mask, I could be that character because they had the mask. It didn't matter race, it didn't matter color, nothing, religion. As long as that mask represented a symbol of something greater that you could be, that's all that mattered to me. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It was like Héctor mentioned that, you know, he grew up upon lucha libre. I too grew up upon lucha libre when my uncles used to take me to the Jefferson Drive-In to watch El Santo Blue Demon. And those were superheroes that you could actually touch, you know, whenever they come in person. And when I created El Gato Negro, I mixed American superhero with lucha libre and formed it into, like, you know, it's like menudo, you know, just put it all together and see what you come out with, you know. And yeah, he has a lot of lucha libre in there because in the story, his grandfather, the very first El Gato Negro, was a Mexican masked luchador.
Very cool.
No, y como dices, Ray, you know, there is, I mean, when it comes down to the mainstream comic books, hay de todo, ¿verdad? Y en eso hay ¿cómo se? I mean, you can call them gatekeepers, ¿verdad? Y diferentes ideas, no nomás una del otro lado, ¿verdad? De todo, porque muchas veces los independientes tienen un buen pulso en la comunidad. Y eso es lo que nosotros, en eso es lo que me ha afectado, me ha ayudado mucho con el Peso Hero, que tiene un pulso en la comunidad. Y en eso, pues, llama mucho la atención de ¿verdad? No importa de qué partido estés, no importa de qué filosofía política, ¿verdad? Tienes una conexión, hay una conexión humana que nosotros podemos conectar, y la frontera es muy especial porque estamos cruzando de aquí a allá, ¿verdad? De aquí a allá.
No, it's very true, man, what you're saying, especially the cross-pollination, I guess you could call it, of the different cultures. Right. Even though we're on the border, even though that line is imaginary, like, you can tell that there's a difference cuando vamos de aquí para allá o de allá para acá. And I think your character exemplifies that when it comes to the connection that it has on both sides of the border. Like, when you were explaining it to me right now, when you're explaining it out loud, you know, about, you know, he has this certain look that's very norteño, and that's something that I realized a little bit later in the game. At first, you know, I realized, I checked out your character and I was like, oh, it's you know, some dude that he wants to, like, right the wrongs that other, you know, other, I guess, how would you call it, like, stereotypes are ruining for you know, the people that cross over. But then, you know, I started delving deeper into it, and that's when I started realizing, wait, he has his own look for a reason. He has that belt for a reason. Las botas de afuera, you know, la camisa, todo eso. Now I know, I understand more where you're coming from as far as that concern. And that's, you know, like you were saying, it's very difficult to straddle that line, that you know, that inclusivity. I don't want to use that word, but, you know, that matches both sides of the border, even though there's no line dividing the border.
Sí, gracias, Ray. Es porque así hay diferentes niveles, mano. Como te digo, como tú poniste esa atención, hay diferentes niveles del personaje, de la historia, respecto a la cultura, respecto a la historia, ¿verdad? And like, one of the things about Valiente es que esas conexiones se me parece a mi tío, ¿no? ¿Verdad? Que sea el puro macho, ¿verdad? Pero hacemos esas conexiones entre las familias, ¿verdad? Entre nuestras familias con nuestros personajes.
No, it's very true, man, and it's like, I think Richard once put it that it was like, you know, like the Trinity of DC. You know, there's Batman, there's Superman, there's Wonder Woman, and what we're creating kind of like fits that whole, I guess, archetype. Superman being El Valiente, El Gato Negro being El Batman, you know, and then there's still, you know, other aspects of other characters. I don't know. I don't want to say El Peso is Wonder Woman, because of course not, you know, he's not Wonder Woman at all.
Che,
but
I don't know, no me importa, of course. Oh yeah.
But she's, you know, strong. Stuff like that, like we can see aspects of heroes that have come before us in our characters as well, because that's what we love. That's what we grew up with, you know what I mean? And we try to inject that passion and that action, I guess you could say, into what we create as well.
Pero tengo una cosa, mira. One of the things that I've gotten feedback from the mainstream creators, I take that in. Entonces, one that made a great connection with American comics is Doc Savage. Like, hey, it's the Mexican Doc Savage. Digo, ¿sabes qué? Es porque estás poniendo atención, ¿no?
No, that's true, man. That's something like, it just went like that, poop, like in my head and shit when you said that, because I did not realize. I guess I wasn't paying enough attention, but you're right on the money on that, man, and it's true. And not only that, but now that you say it, like you can see everything, like the fighting for the justice, the ones that cannot fight for themselves, and he steps up, and that right away rings true with your character.
So you were heavily influenced by a pulp character then.
I would say Mexican pulp comics too, también, ¿verdad, Richard? Entonces, I used to, my dad was in the military, and so he would bring a lot of Mad magazines of Sergio Aragonés, just the drawing, and so el arte, ¿verdad? Mm-hmm. The political perspective in Mad magazine, so, just the commentary, el comentario político. Ya sabes que los grandes comentarios políticos en México, en la capital, las características, ¿verdad? No, hay mucha historia también.
Y también Calimán. I see a lot of Calimán in him.
Actually, I have ahorita que mencionaste, Héctor, sobre los niveles del personaje, y tengo algo, o sea, de lo que estamos platicando, me interesa que resaltaran cada uno de ustedes qué es lo que más les gusta de su personaje. De ahí paso a otra cosa, pero es como algo con lo que quiero empezar así a preguntarles, y es como pregunta. Hay un ruido ahí. Sí, primero que me pregunta, que compartieran, if you could share, what did you like most about your own character, the main character, like the hero? Relacionado con esto de los niveles, ahorita voy a ir a algo específico.
Richard primero.
Oh, with me. Well, well, for me, a lot of people always tell me, because you base the character based on yourself, and that's true, because there's things that I always wanted to do to be him. El Gato Negro is a social worker by day and crime fighter by night, and the social worker does what he can to help his community. I'm heavily involved in my church, and I try to do what I can for my community. And if it doesn't, if it deems necessary, well, I go to prayer, and then I use my imagination to do what I can to right the wrongs, as the character always does. He tries to do what he feels is right, and to do, to undo the wrongs in today's society, and without, I'm heavily influenced with urban superheroes, those who like Nightwing, Daredevil, and Batman. Heavily influenced on Batman. They know that they're going to get killed doing what they're doing, but as long as they're capable of doing it, they're just going to keep on. That's that's my take on it.
Cool. Who wants to go next?
Nice. Real quiet.
I know we got all quiet.
Nos dejaste pasmados, Richard.
Sí, ¿verdad? Híjole, mano.
Go for it, Héctor. Go for it.
Lo que me gusta de un personaje es mira, como dice Richard, que ya sabes que muchos de estos héroes se ven más grandes lo que es, pero hay algo muy poderoso, que si un héroe cree en algo más grande que él mismo, I think there's something very powerful in that. If there's a, you know, just a superhero that believes in something higher than themselves, that they feel humility, ¿verdad? Entonces, I know that, pues en las páginas de Espacio Hero ha habido momentos, ¿verdad? Y más recientemente en la colección donde vamos a realizar dos nuevos tomos, vemos esa conexión del héroe con algo más grande de él, ¿verdad? Y también algo que me gusta de mi héroe es que no, se viste muy simple, ¿verdad? Cualquier persona mira, yo soy maestro también y muchas veces y ha visitado escuelas y todo eso, como de autor. Hay niños que tienen esas conexiones con el héroe porque ese héroe se parece a su tío, a su abuelito, con las botas y la camiseta. Sí, es como un campesino, ¿verdad? Se viste muy simple, ¿verdad? No le importa, muy humilde. Eso.
Cool.
Ray.
I mean, at the same time, you know, drawing from both of you gentlemen and what you said, it's the whole, like the symbolism that comes with the hero. Like El Valiente, he has the mask, and like I said earlier, you know, growing up, that always seemed to me like anybody who wore a mask wasn't the person that was inside; it was you. Like you could turn into that person, you could be that person, and not only adopt their ideals, but just try and strive to do better for yourself. And for others around you. And that's something that I've always tried to push with El Valiente. His stories are wacky, they're crazy, they're like over the top. But at the end of the day, you're escaping into the life of this hero that is larger than life. And like Hector said, you know, he does believe in something greater than himself. He will gladly lay down his life in order to prevent some sort of travesty from occurring. But I would like to think that that's just the human condition, that anyone put in that situation, if you had that immense power to be able to stop travesty or tragedy from happening, that you would do the same thing. You know, you wouldn't be selfish with that, and you would try to make it better for everyone else. And that's something that's very important as well as El Valiente. I want people, when they witness him or they see him, to feel this comfort, like, okay, he's here, everything's going to be okay. He's going to be able to take care of it. Like Superman, you know, when Superman shows up, you're like, okay, he's here, everything's going to be fine. And, you know, when Batman shows up, it's like, you better run because he's going to kick your ass kind of thing. But nonetheless, it's kind of the same feeling. That's the same feeling I get from El Gato and El Peso también. It's like, oh, shit, you fucked up. El Peso's here. You guys better run because you're doing something wrong, you know. And that's something that I love about our characters. All of our characters inspire hope. They inspire us to make sure that, hey, man, everything's going to be okay. Tomorrow's going to be a better and brighter day. And that's pretty much what I like about my hero. And your guys' heroes as well.
Gracias, Manuel.
Yeah.
Thank you. And I asked that question. I loved what you all answered, porque pensaba ahorita en algo que dijo, creo que Héctor habla de la conexión, con la conexión humana, ¿no? Y entonces, cuando les pregunto qué es lo que les gusta, todos me hablan de cada personaje tiene una complejidad. It's not simple, you know, it's not schematic, right? It has different. You know, when you turn a character into a complex, you don't know how it's gonna react to whatever. We know what el personaje tiene en su ideal hacer el bien, ¿no? Ayudar a la comunidad. Me encanta esto del trabajador social. Está muy chingón eso. Entonces, de día es trabajador social y de noche it's a superhero, right? Pero ya hay una complejidad ahí, ¿no? De alguna manera representa el ideal, ¿no? Lo que no pudimos hacer de día, salimos de noche y ya tenemos otra arma, ¿no? Ya podemos, we're Batman, right? We're going to kick everyone's ass, right? So I really love cómo esto conecta, ¿no? Yo pienso que cada vez me engancho con personajes que son cada vez más complejos, ¿no? Que tienen capas, nivel, ¿no? Que de repente te muestran, no quiso ayudarle a los que estaban en la esquina porque, y empieza una explicación. There's a backside story, there's something going on, and we're asking ourselves why is not helping them, right? And then we turn into, I don't know, something's gonna happen, right? I don't know, it's probably, it's all there, you know, mixed up, but I love it. Y me gusta esto que dice Ray, ¿no? El simbolismo, ¿no? Lo que hay en la máscara O sea, esa capacidad puede ser quien sea, ¿no? Whoever could be that hero. You don't know that. It doesn't matter what race, what color, what culture is behind that mask, but it's embodying action, right? Moving on. And also, I got, and this is the last, to keep, lo que dices, Richard, sobre la conexión, algo para mí que ahorita está pegando bien duro es cómo la conexión personal conecta con nuestras propias ideas, ¿no? A veces hablamos desde un punto de vista like autobiography, like self-narrative, but sometimes we use it and we create something different that is different from our life, but somehow it's based on what we live every day, right? But I love it. It's just, for me, always trying to hook what made me think on that. ¿Qué me hizo? Y entonces, me decías ahorita, Richard, que había una conexión con el tío, con la familia, ¿no? De alguna manera, este personaje se parece a un familiar mío, ¿no?
Sí.
Do we have all of you guys, not me, but you guys have everything, the same connection? You realize, do you have the connection? I know where I took that from that hero. I know he uses this special belt because I grab it from wherever, you know. Do you know that exact definition on it?
Pues conmigo la hebilla, ¿verdad? El cinturón, las botas, eso pues es parte de la cultura, ¿no? Y yo crecí con botas en la frontera y hasta me tengo, ¿verdad? Pero sabes que hay cosas que nosotros, mi personaje es un poquito diferente como yo, no es total una reflexión, porque hay cosas que el personaje le gusta que a mí no me gusta, especialmente la música norteña le gusta a mi personaje, pero a mí no me gusta, ¿verdad? Entonces, pero si me pongo, eso sí, le tengo miles de respetos a los Tigres del Norte, ¿verdad? Pero sí a Vicente, ¿verdad? No, pero esos son que mi abuelito le encantaba Chente, ¿verdad? Y
Who doesn't love Chente, man? I mean,
right? Pero sí, mira, yo crecí con Molotov y con Café Tacuba, ¿verdad? Y con la música rock alternativa en Estados Unidos también. Pero, ¿verdad? Pero yo conmigo es poniendo cultura, y lugares de la frontera es muy importante, como aquí vemos la presa de la amistad, aquí donde está el héroe, ¿verdad? Esa presa está en el río Texas, donde tienen las dos águilas en medio, ¿verdad? Y dice amistad. Entonces esto, yo digo que es algo muy importante para mí, tener esas conexiones a la frontera en las historietas.
That somehow, I don't know if you put it that way, I'm just asking. De alguna manera, el héroe en sí viene siendo como la representación del abuelo tuyo. O sea, hay una
sí,
en la que tú dices,
sí,
mi abuelo
sí,
es mi héroe.
Como, sí, yo digo, y también pues diferentes familiares, como mis papás, pues, ¿verdad? Y es algo muy íntimo, ¿verdad? A veces escribiendo también, y las injusticias en la frontera de los inmigrantes, ¿verdad? Y toda la violencia que sufren, ¿verdad? También es algo que mis propios estudiantes han han sufrido sobre eso. Y sabes que y muchas veces todos nosotros tenemos esas conexiones en la frontera de lo que ha pasado también. Y no somos como alguien en Marvel o en DC que de Nueva York está escribiendo sobre una historia que no tiene esa conexión, nomás pues, se ponen en Google Maps y tienen, sabes que voy a escribir sobre esto porque yo dice Google que bla, 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 pero nuestras historias es algo muy íntimo, son de reflexiones de nuestras vidas y de la frontera.
That's very true, man. I've always known that as far as, you know, when writing, you always write what you know. And that's exactly what you hit on the head. You know, it's a reflection of what we know. It's a reflection of what we experienced growing up.
Yep.
You know,
Yep.
all the stuff that we witnessed, watching TV, listening to our parents, reading, you know, specific comics like Richard was saying. You know, what is it? The Policía Gráfica, you know, comics and stuff. The little vignettes that would come out.
Right.
You know, we experience all that stuff, and that's what we know. So we're gonna write about what we know. We're not gonna write about, you know, living as a, you know, a tenant in a apartment complex in Brooklyn, because I've never experienced that. I don't know what would happen there. But you hit it right on the head on that. We write.
Well, not to say that. Not to say that we can write. We can definitely write.
Yeah, we can write.
But to totally own it, you know, like some of the mainstream writers can totally own a subject and say that, well, you know, they can just Google it and become an expert. No. I mean, this is where this is where we excel in our scene.
Yeah, and it's interesting that we're talking about that, because last time I was having a conversation, we're on another stream, we're talking about kind of, I guess, the same subject about how new writers that are coming up nowadays have not really lived life, that have not really experienced things in life, especially with, you know, just the set of circumstances that we find ourselves in current society. And like, it's difficult for me to buy some of these stories, even though they sound really cool, because the writer that's writing them only did research. He never really experienced it. Like, yeah, you know, just a loose example of it. Like, oh yeah, I went to the farmer's market in downtown California, but you've never really experienced it. You've never really seen it. You've just seen it in pictures, or you've read about it online. And that's a really, really bad example, but that's what I'm getting at right there. It's just living life and experiencing things enriches what we create and what we try to express ourselves through our comics.
Well, you know, me being the both writer and artist of the book, I feel like here the writing is more important than the art, because the writing is the true backbone of all comic books, any type of books per se. And you're the storyteller first, and then you're the artist on here. And this helps me in my advantage. I know what I want when I write, when I create the characters, especially all the supporting characters in El Gato Negro, try to make them as real as possible. And when I talk about it to the people who come and buy the books, I give them the quick intro of the characters, and they said, well, this person reminds me of my cousin who graduated from college, and this one right here reminds me of my tío who is a policeman, and this one right here reminds me of my other cousin who's a loser. And it, you know, and I try to make them as real as possible, almost that they say, well, I grew up with these people, and I'm in relation to that, and that's what helps the book a lot here on, well, in my part.
Okay.
He's going through his notes.
Yeah, sorry, I'm a note guy.
No worries.
Yeah, I already asked you about the the first question that I have today, so we already went through it. What do you think are today's struggles for your own characters? I was going through a lot of different things. That one of them, I believe, was El Peso hero. It was going through some COVID situation where he was helping someone else to hand, mask, right? Cubrebocas,
sí, las
right?
mascarillas, sí, las tapabocas.
Las mascarillas. And brought me to...
No, sigue. Sí, sigue, perdón, sigue.
And so I was thinking on how are you connecting to all you connecting to the everyday going on, and how is that a struggle for your own work, or is it a struggle, or probably is just a way of breathing in? How that works for you as an artist?
Conmigo fue el último año, ¿verdad? Fue como en febrero que me dicen unos fans de México, me dicen, entonces que viene el COVID, quién sabe qué, y que va a ser el Peso Hero, ¿qué va a hacer? digo, pues no le puede dar un chingazo, ¿verdad? No le puede dar, ¿verdad? No le puede. Entonces lo que puedes ser es ayudar a los trabajadores esenciales, especialmente en la última historia donde está ayudando a una enfermera a pasar tapabocas a los trabajadores en los ranchos, también los que se encargan de la comida y todo eso. Y es algo que él no fue el héroe de esa historia, fue la enfermera que, ¿verdad? Él lo único que hizo es que empujaron una troca que se le escapó el gas y ahí comenzó a empujar, es todo lo que hizo en la historia. Pero realmente los héroes fueron los trabajadores esenciales en esa historia. Y eso fue la última historieta que salió en marzo, en mayo del último año.
Okay. All right. Is that like, is something you like a concern, una preocupación que tienes, el estar así como conectado con el día a día, o es a veces llegan historias que se conectan con lo que está pasando en la calle, en la vida real, en el barrio? How that works?
Sorry, I'm sorry. You were roboting, so I didn't understand what you were saying. But...
Oh yeah, I was trying to. Already, Héctor gave us a connection, something he did just in the last issue of El Peso Hero. Like the hero is not. You got kind of step down a little to make shine the others. Not that, right? But let the others do their work, and that's how an everyday, because we're in the context of COVID, right? Or a pandemic, yeah. COVID. But I was asking, how you guys think? How do you manage to live in the everyday, like the real context of what is going on? Not just the pandemic, but what's all around, like el barrio or the city.
I mean, for me, the answer to that isn't really the comic itself, but the production of the comic itself. Especially during these times, it was a really, really good time to buckle down. There was no distractions. You couldn't go outside. You just had to stay home. And what better time is there to create, especially something that you're very passionate about? And that's what we've been doing. At 6x6, that's all we've been doing. We've just been creating. We've just been making sure that, all our T's are crossed and our I's are dotted, and make sure that the books that we're doing come out to the best quality that we can. As far as to demonstrate what can be done, what Raza can do when it comes to independent books, and to show off in the mainstream, and for others to see those books and be like, wow, these guys can compete, with the mainstream. They can compete with other indie books, and they're from where? Oh, they're from the border. They're from Juarez. They're from El Paso. That's pretty much how we've been, I guess, dealing with the whole COVID situation on that end, as far as the creation of the book. So a lot of work has been done. Thankfully, we found the light at the end of the tunnel when it came to that.
Well, for me, I don't want to, try to come up with an excuse here, but I was during the pandemic, I was living in a different country. I was living in Luxembourg that time, and where the pandemic really hit over there. And in Europe, it was very strict. They catch you outside after 8:00 p.m., you get fined, and they were going like real strict rules. There, I had a lot of time to work on the comic. I was working on my next graphic novel, and then when it was time for me to come home, I came back home to the States in August of last year, in 2020. But I left a good majority of my artwork behind.
Oh,
whoa, that hurt a lot. Even the ones stuff that I've already done, I had them in thumb drives, and I left them all back in Luxembourg. Somehow I've got somebody over there to manage to go through my stuff and send me what I truly needed through luggagefree.com, so and I got all the stuff, and I said to myself, we're back in business.
Nice.
But and I'm starting working on my next graphic novel here as we speak. Edgar, you don't mind if I just do a quick plug on there?
Please do. Please. We're all waiting.
Okay. Well, I'm going to announce, and you guys going to hear it here first.
Nice.
The El Gato Negro collection. It's all the books that I've done together. Is going to be into one volume. It's 166 pages, and it's all the collection that I've done in the past of El Gato Negro 1 through 4 and El Gato Negro Nocturnal Warrior 1 and 2, and some unfinished and unpublished artwork, and it's going to be printed through Amazon. You guys heard it first here.
Are you going to do crowdfunding? Are you going to do crowdfunding for it? Or?
I'm going to do crowdfunding on my next graphic novel. As soon as this one's out, I'm going to do the next one, which is already 40% into it. And that's the stuff that came in overseas on there. So I'll make an announcement on that very soon too, as well.
Felicidades.
Hey,
Felicidades.
Gracias.
Really
That's great. That's great news, especially since I don't have most of those books. Man, awesome. They're going to be in one place, so that's cool.
Well, you heard it. You heard it here on this show first.
Very cool.
What
about you, Hector? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, is that someone asked us there if we should ask the audience. I don't know if we're in the nick of time. I can be here. I don't have to go anywhere, but we have to ask if the audience wants to ask something to you guys. But
Okay.
I don't know if I'm going to see that. I don't know if Daniel, ¿nos puedes decir? O hay algunas preguntas? Okay. Okay. Saludos, Edgar. Saludos.
Hello.
Hola. There's very few comments, dice Daniel. Is that it? Just el saludo?
I guess so, man. I don't know. I'm watching it too,
And
but
someone-
there's not on YouTube. There's not very much going on.
El Valente. Okay, you're seeing in Facebook, so there's no much in it? Okay.
Oh, I'm looking at YouTube, but there's not much going on YouTube. I don't know about Facebook though, but
Me falta compartir, lo tengo que compartir.
yeah. Let's hear Hector, man. What do you got,
Hector.
Hector? What's going on right now?
Please.
Híjole, okay. What's not? No, okay. Currently, we're doing a crowdfunding campaign, a Kickstarter for the El Paso Hero Collection. 10 years, 10 años, el aniversario de El Paso Hero. Son 12 libros, 12 books, all in one, kind of a omnibus. Una colección grande, 400 páginas. Y sale, y sabes que acabamos de, ganamos la meta, pero estamos como quiera aumentando para la siguiente historia, El Peso Hero, La Guerra de los Sicarios. Sale muy pronto el próximo año.
Nice.
Y también ese es el mundo del Peso Hero. Y también, nomás ya sea entre amigos aquí, ¿verdad? Tenemos la producción del Peso Hero con Jay Hernández, Eli Roth, ¿verdad? Con productores de una película, ¿verdad? Entonces, ahorita estamos, hemos trabajado, tengo los scripts aquí, ando, ¿verdad? Con ese jale también, esa colaboración, esa collaboration. También, entonces, tenemos más sorpresas muy pronto, más noticias que no les puedo decir, pero muy pronto comparto eso. Pero no, en este momento, por favor, apoyen en el Kickstarter, ¿verdad? Del Peso Hero, que nos faltan 2 semanas más. Y hablando de 2 semanas más, también tenemos Ray, mi compañero aquí, mi colega, con su propio crowdfunding campaign.
Yes, sir. Thank you for that segue. Same for us, man. 6x6 Comics. Estamos haciendo los Cryptonos right now. We are pushing that through Indiegogo. We did meet goal, and we're starting to unlock the stretch goals right now. I think the next stretch goal is 6K, so we're almost there. I think we're like $100 away from 6K, and we're planning on releasing this book in December. And for you guys that don't know what the Cryptonos is about, it's about monsters fighting tulpas. Tulpas being like the creepypastas and stuff like that of the world, sentient thoughts that become reality in flesh and bone. And the cryptids, of course, we have like the old standbys like Bigfoot, and the man dog La Llorona, as Edgar had said earlier, is actually a hero in the Cryptonolds, and that story was really, really cool to write and to figure out how we could convert La Llorona into a hero. But all these monsters are fighting monsters in the Cryptonolds. If you want to go check it out, it's on Indiegogo. I'm not sure if the links are in the chat or whatever, but go check it out under the Cryptonolds, which is cryptids and criminals. You put them together, you get Cryptonolds on Indiegogo. But man, I wish I could say that we're shopping it around for I don't know, a series or something like that. So if you guys know anybody,
nunca sabes, mano. Nunca sabes, mano. You never know who's listening, brother.
Yep. Hey, whoever's listening, if you're interested, it's up for grabs right now, especially with all the streaming services out there. And this is rock solid storytelling, and the artwork is to die for. So just go check it out if you get a chance.
It's one of the things that I love about Ray is that he's telling horror stories in the border. Growing up, siempre me gustaban las películas de terror, y a quien no le gusta, ¿verdad? Y esas películas de terror de la frontera, ¿verdad? Entonces lo que está hablando sobre eso, esas historias y todo eso en su libro, Cryptonolds.
Me faltó la mano peluda. La mano peluda.
Don't get me started on that, man. Don't get me started. Aquí amigos, nos están diciendo aquí, cerramos a las 6, tenemos 9 minutos todavía, o Daniel y Jazz, o ya cerramos. Aquí tengo el chat, pero ¿a las 6? Bueno, no, dice, sigamos. No, and don't get me started on La Mano Peluda, man. It's like, we'll talk about it. I mean, there's so much stories, and there's like the whole storytelling, the whole, it's like a whole genre in it, right? People that talk to the radio and start selling their own stories, their own way, their own words, their own language. Oof. I don't know. We have to make a book. A big Mano Peluda book, man, with all the rights and all that.
Oh man, for me it was El Cucuy, of course. Everybody knows El Cucuy.
Sure,
and
sure.
La Llorona. La Llorona was always a big thing for me. My grandparents, my abuelitas, and my parents to a point would always scare us with that stuff. How about you guys? Have you ever thought about inserting those type of urban legends into your books, like Richard and Héctor, like Llorona and La Mano Peluda and stuff like that?
Sí, es lo que hicimos. Mira, hace 2 años hice es porque sabes que a veces como escritor, pues creador del Peso Hero, me canso de los temas pesados del Peso Hero, ¿verdad? Porque sí es algo es duro a veces escribir, ¿verdad? Sobre los campos de detención de los niños y todo eso, detention facilities, in the border. It's hard to write sometimes, but I love horror, entonces, I made El Peso Hero Frontera de Terror, Border of Terror, and it's different urban legends, and, and I hope to pick it up. You can check out and buy it off the Kickstarter. It's one of the add-ons, too. It's just 2 stories, and so it gives me a break. It lets me flex my creative muscles, too, When I was a little kid, I used to watch Vacaciones de Terror.
Oh, yeah, man.
Remember that?
Yes.
Pedrito Fernandez, my God, dude. Come on.
Yes. And so, me gustaba mucho esa película, ¿verdad? Entonces tenemos el peso yo contra la lechuza en esa historia.
Oh, that's awesome. I want to check that out, man. A good friend of mine, Mr. Olivares, Mr. Dave Olivares, he wrote he has a comic book called Malo. And one of the villains is La Lechuza, man. And Dave's actually getting ready to put together the Malo omnibus, like, El Peso Hero. So hopefully that'll be happening soon. We're all following in that route and stuff. So that'll be cool. What about you, Richard? What type of urban legends have you had in your books?
Well, everybody's favorite is La Llorona, on there too. But we're working on one that has to do with the owl, on there. But a person's dress up on that in order to enhance fear of those who believe in they grew up on that folklore, on there too. So that's a story in the making as well, so cool. Looking forward to that, so.
I'm down, man. I'm just waiting for payday so I can go back these books, go back your book, Héctor, as well,
I already backed yours, brother. Te digo, man. They too. Day 2, Day 1, Day 1.
Nos piden para
Gracias.
cierre ya. Para cerrar a las 6, nos piden 5 minutos, nos dan de comentarios finales. Ya está por entrar Jazz. O entramos ya, Jazz, como tú digas.
So when is dinner?
Comentarios finales, si quieren hacer invitación a la audiencia, a dónde los pueden encontrar, dónde pueden encontrar su trabajo, pues adelante, es el momento.
Awesome. Okay. Go for it, Richard. You first. Where can we find you?
Everybody froze. Oh, no.
All right, you go first, Héctor.
Pueden checar en el pesohero.com, también en el riobravocomics.com y en las redes sociales, por favor. Apoyen el Kickstarter, que también tenemos la versión digital también de la colección del Peso Hero. 10 años del Peso Hero, entonces les tenemos muchas noticias muy pronto. Y también si buscan Google, el Peso Hero, pueden ver todas las entrevistas con Telemundo, Televisa, Univision y todo en español. Chéquenlo.
Awesome. And you, Richard, where can we find you?
I'm all over Google, buddy. I am all over Google on there, and then I have like three pages in Facebook that you can find starting with El Gato Negro and Azteca Productions.
Cool. And myself, of course, like I was saying earlier, we're live on Indiegogo right now. We're trying to build momentum to reach the next stretch goal. But of course, follow us 6x6 Comics on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. We even have a TikTok. The Cryptonals has a TikTok. Go check it out. We have like scary stories in 60 seconds. We promote the book, and of course, we promote like legends from the surrounding area. So check it out on TikTok, the Cryptonals as well. And I want to thank you guys, man. This is awesome.
Hey.
I have not been in the same room with you guys in like what's been like 2-3 years. So
at Texas Latino Comic Con, ¿verdad?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It'll be awesome once all this is over. Yes, once this is all over, man. We can see each other. And Edgar, thank you so much too, man.
No, gracias, hermanos. En verdad les agradezco mucho. Thank you so much, guys, for
thank
knowing
you, Edgar. Thank you, Jazz.
Thank you. My pleasure, my honor.
Richard, Héctor, Rey,
Un abrazo.
muchísimas
Saludos.
gracias. A nombre de la Secretaría de Cultura, la Secretaría de Cultura
Igualmente.
del Estado de Chihuahua y la Secretaría de Cultura de la Zona Norte y la Feria del Libro de la Frontera 2021. Agradecemos infinitamente el que estén en este espacio. Gracias por este conversatorio Chicano Comics. Invitamos a la audiencia a que no se pierdan la demás programación y a que estén muy pendientes de todo lo que sigue. Muchísimas gracias. Hasta luego.